Tonight's topic is male expectation, the invisible cage crushing your joy. So, first of all, we're going to start with um, just a baseline kind of definition for a couple of different things. So, the first one is male expectation. So, that's social, cultural, and personal pressures defining what a man should be, often unrealistic, rigid, and emotionally limiting. What are your thoughts on this definition before we move further?
Oh, I'm cool with the definition.
You cool with it?
Oh
All
yeah.
right. The next one is the invisible cage. The invisible cage is the unseen emotional constraints built from expectations that trap a man into roles instead of authenticity. What are your thoughts and or questions about this one?
Thumbs up on this one too.
All right, I like both of these too. Next I'm going to do a couple like three warning signs. So here's some three warning signs that you may be inside this invisible cage that's crushing your joy. So the first one is emotional suppression. So emotional suppression is feeling the need to hide pain, fear, or vulnerability.
Hmm.
The next one is identity overload, defining your worth only by performance or productivity. The last one is chronic over responsibility, feeling guilty when you rest or ask for help. With that being said, brother, here is tonight's first question. What's the earliest age you felt like you had to be a man instead of just being a boy?
Wow. I think growing up in a house where my father was in and out of situations, dealing with his, demons, if you will. Uh, no male in the house but me because my cousin was in and out of, the system. I think a lot of the load came on me of responsibility of just work around the house and making sure things happen. And just the very mention of you, the man of the house, because I'm the only male in the house. So I think mentally it was preparing me to, hey, it's your responsibility to manage this stuff. Where I'm a little boy, so I guess I was maybe 10, around 10 years old. And I'm that hey, you the man of the house. Like I can't bust a grape in the fruit fight, but I'm the man of the house. I'm supposed to be responsible, but I have no knowledge of what responsibility means at this time. You muted.
Man, I'm thinking that the earliest age for me may have been about 19. That's late when I had my son. So I wanted to say earlier, and I was going, similarly along the lines with you dealing with certain things inside of the home and stuff like that. But I didn't decide to grow up then. One of the things that I did was when all of that stuff was going on, I went, I ran, and I joined the military. So I got to get away from all of that stuff that were everything that was going on. I ran. So, but once I ran and got to the military, and then found out a couple minutes later that my girlfriend at the time was got pregnant. So then things had to change a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I think that's one part. But then, even then, I still don't know if I really felt like I had to be a man yet. I don't know if I really felt that or thought that until I probably got married. So, what had happened was my son was born in 95. I joined the military in 94. Found out she was pregnant in 94. He was born in 95 and we got married in 96. So, even though I had a child, we were in two different states. So I was in Colorado and she was in Virginia. So it was like, I still didn't necessarily feel the need or have the need to really grow up and be a man yet. So I'm still acting like a boy. I'm still getting in trouble. I'm still thinking and doing childish things. So that's why I don't necessarily say maybe what 19 it may not have been until I actually got married at 20 when and then they moved out to Colorado when I was like, this is real now. Like these bills, this rent got to be paid every single month. The car got to have gas in it. We only had one income for part of that time. I'm like a PFC in the army or something like that. So for me, it probably was a little bit later. I want to say 19, but it might have been about 20 once they moved out there, and I got married and stuff like that, and felt all of that responsibility that I, kind of had to be a man and couldn't just be a boy and do every single thing that I wanted to do. So,
See, when you speak of responsibility, that for me came like at 14 and 15,
mm-hmm,
because at some point at 14, I was kicked out the house.
mm-hmm,
So, I'm out there hanging with my cousins and I'm doing every and anything. And what you do, hey, you got a little girlfriend and y'all get together. And next thing you know, somebody pregnant. And
mm-hmm.
so now my grandmother, she was like, oh, I ain't giving you nothing else. She said, you got to work for everything. I ain't paying for them diapers. I ain't paying for the Similac and all that other stuff. So I had to, in my mind, I had to become responsible for what was to come. So when I started having kids early, I'm a young teen, I'm mid-teens, I'm starting to have children. It's like, and I wasn't one of them guys that, hey, the mama got it. I actually took responsibility. That's why I'm still close to my babies now. I took responsibility, and I'm still young. I'm still a kid. I'm in high school. I got to go to school. I got to make some money. I got to make sure they good. I got to, and I got to keep a roof over my head somewhere. So I'm going through all this at a young age, whereas all I should be thinking about is school. All I should be thinking about is playing. But I got to be the man.
So we talking about male expectations. When you was 14 and 15 and you was out there, did grandma have? Did you and grandma have the same expectation of what you should be doing? You know what I mean? Like,
You
was you
said
like, well, I need to be doing this, and grandma like, nah, you need to be doing this. Like, were you kind of okay with grandma saying you got to pay for everything?
I wasn't, because I think, hey, I'm young and I played sports, and it's like, hold up. I looked at like, man, I'm losing my life. What I
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to play. I want to go outside and play basketball, play football, and do all. I want to have fun.
Yeah.
But at that point, she said, "No, fun is over. You got responsibility. When you had fun for them little 90 seconds, and now you got responsibility from that." So she made me stick to that. And
Mm.
I'm thinking, okay, she's just talking. But now when things came down, she's like, ain't my
Yeah.
responsibility. So she
Yeah.
made me stick to it.
Dang, yeah. So y'all had different expectations about what you should have been doing at 14. I get that too. And I've seen those shows on TV where they got like those 16-year-old girls and like getting pregnant and stuff like this. And like the mamas be watching the kids and stuff like this. And the kids still be out partying and hanging out. And I'm just like, man, how in the world?
Right.
Like, bro, like, so I'm with grandma. I'm just like, man, you need to be out there. I ain't paying for these diapers and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, but see, here's the thing. What if that child has something? Like, what if that child is 6'6"? You know what I mean? Like nice with basketball. You know what I mean? Because like, do you still, and this may be another conversation for another show, but we are kind of talking about expectations a little bit, so it may fall in line. But it's like, do you still, as a parent or a grandma, still push to go out there and pay for them Pampers, or do you allow that child to go 100% on that dream or that goal or that talent? You know what I'm saying?
I think it's a thin line between hindrance and helping.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can help someone along the way, but when you don't allow a person, especially a male, to feel the pain of their decisions, they will keep making those decisions. they're going to keep expecting you to be their crutch, be their cushion, be their buffer. And that's what happens with a lot of young men. We are saved by our mamas. We're saved by our grandmothers because, oh, well, he ain't mean it and he ain't this, that, and the other. Instead of saying, dude, you made your bed, lie in it. See, that's what our grandmothers did. That's what our mothers did. But we say we don't want them to go through and he has this and he could be, and we want them to be the best. Well, I think at some point you got to make people responsible for their decisions or they will keep making bad decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that too. Next question, man. How have male expectations shaped the way you express or suppress emotion?
I think I'm a emotional suppressor. Like I think I'm one of the typical men that when it came to emotions in sports, yeah, I can be rah rah. But in life, when things happen, it's like I gotta be controlled. I can't show emotions. I gotta be tough. I can't cry. Watching the movie, you want to show some emotion, but then sometimes I think, and it depends on how you grew up and where you grew up. I grew up in Detroit. I grew up in a crime-ridden area, and you talking murders and drugs and this, that, and other, and life happened. And when life happened, I think it kind of took away my innocence as a youth because I was partaking in some of that stuff. So it took away that. So now when the emotional part come in, I think that part of me was unalive. I'd rather say the other word, but it was unalive because I had gone through certain things, and now it's like, man, I don't care about nothing. And that's where I think a lot of the children, especially my age group and beyond, it's like, I don't care about this. I don't care about my life, so I know I don't care about yours.
Yeah. Man, when I look at this, how have male expectations shaped the way you express or suppress emotion? I think it starts early on. And I'm speaking in general terms when it comes to little boys growing up and stuff like this. So, and this is all kind of cliche, but I think it's still relevant. Talk about, little boys, be nice to little girls, don't hit girls back. If you fall down, get up, be a man, right? So, they spend a lot of their youth, you know what I mean, hearing things like this. And then as they get older, and they get into relationships, they hear, sometimes the opposite stuff of that. They like, talk more, be more in touch with your emotions, different stuff like this. So it's like sometimes men get, as they go through life, the women in their lives give them, I don't know if to say is mixed emotions, but give them mixed information. Because again, in one sense, you're telling them to be a man and different things like this. In another minute, you're telling them to open up and be sensitive and be more in contact, more in touch with your feelings. So, and I think sometimes with some men, they can cause kind of confusion. So they don't know, going through life until they get to a certain level of maturity or getting certain understanding that it's okay to express, in my opinion, express and suppress your emotion. I think that there are certain times that I need to suppress my emotion, but I can still, because I may be in a certain situation. Every situation, I don't need to be flying off the handle or to be emotional about, in a positive way or in a negative way. I need to be, there's certain times and place for everything, and then there's certain to suppress them. Then there are certain times to where it's okay to express. If I'm in, if I'm on here or if I call you up as another brother and I'm talking to you about something that may be going on in my life, I know that because of the relationship that we have developed over the last couple of years, so that I don't necessarily have to suppress my emotions. I can express whatever it is that I need to you. But there may be certain information that or certain people that I may call to where I may suppress my emotion, or even certain times if I'm at work and I'm having a conversation, it may be better for me to suppress that emotion versus giving giving somebody the business. You know
See,
what I'm saying?
I like what you said, but I think instead of the word suppress, what
Mm-hmm.
you're saying, it's like detonation. It's not a suppressed detonation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a controlled detonation.
Controlled. Okay.
So instead of suppression, meaning you holding it in, letting it bottle up, and eventually it got to go somewhere. So instead of that, you control it. It's like, I think we all need to be in control of our emotions, control of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. We all need to say, okay, I don't have to blow up after everything. I don't have to have road rage. I'm controlling me. I don't need to act like everybody else. And that's the difference between suppression and uh, controlling. I think we should control. So when we're in situations, we don't fly off the handle. Like I tell people, I sit there, you all that lip. I don't care what I'm getting mad for. Okay, unless you put your hands on me, you just running your mouth. That
Yeah.
is nothing to me. So when we're talking emotions, I think sometimes we have people telling us how to navigate our emotions that aren't equipped to tell us how to navigate our emotions. And when we have males telling females how to be females, females telling males how to be males, it's all going wrong because I'm telling you based off of my experience and my expectations of you, not of the actual experience of how you should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you just brought up that certain people shouldn't necessarily be telling people how they should be thinking or expressing themselves and stuff like that. But not but you know, nah, I'm gonna move on. I was gonna say something, but I'm gonna leave it alone. Um Seen a couple of other people popped in. Coach popped in, so he's in the chat. Good to see you, and culture collab as well. So thank again everybody for being here. Again, if you have a question or anything like that that you would like us to get to or answer, something like that, feel free to drop it in the chat while you're at it and while you listening to the sound of my voice. Go ahead and hit that like button, share it, and share this conversation with somebody else. Um, I got a personal question for the audience as well. So, um, what's one expectation you carried that wasn't yours, but you lived under it anyway? What's one expectation you carried that wasn't yours, but you lived under it anyway?
One expectation, I think, not to show weakness,
Mm,
not to show weakness, whether that's emotion, and that made me a horrible person to be in a relationship with, a horrible person to parent children, because it's like suck it up, you'll be all right. Even as a soldier, it's like I thought, oh, push through it, suck it up, push through it. You know, it's like, so pain was almost a figment of somebody's imagination. It's like, nah, you just complaining to be complaining. So sometimes actual pains or things that need to be addressed was overlooked by me because of my insensitivity to it.
um,
It's like insensitivity. But yeah.
I think for me, it was that the you gotta fix everything, that you fix everything, as daddy. Everybody leans on daddy for everything. Fix this, fix that, need help with my homework. So I know people know the song, Superwoman from way back in the day, but I think sometimes men are held to that standard too, as always trying to having to fix everything. And this could be things that we want to do, things that we may stereotypically be our role to do, but it's like sometimes I f- I used to think or feel like I had to fix everything. And I don't know why, but as I got older, I realized that I think this may have went back to the whole happy wife, happy life type thing, to whereas it was always trying to fix every single thing on my own and not necessarily holding anybody else accountable. You know what I'm saying? It was like I got to always be the one who changed. You know what I'm saying? In the relationship piece. But I just think that sometimes not necessarily just in a relationship, but I think that's one expectation that I carried that wasn't mine. But I lived under it anyway. And that was again to think that I had to fix everything. You ever felt like that or think that, or were you kind of raised differently than that?
I think I still feel like that. I think
Mm-hmm.
even the way I am with my daughters, it's almost where they could think daddy can put an engine in the car.
Yeah.
And daddy saying, nah, I get my doggone nails manicured. I ain't touching no engine. But
Mm-hmm.
like I got one daughter where if it's something go on, she calls me and I'm like, I don't know nothing about putting no shingles on no roof, but
Yeah.
automatically she think, hey, daddy Superman, he gonna fix it. And I put my cape on and I figure it out instead
Yeah.
of, but I've learned how to not think, okay, I can fix it. But in the military, I was taught that you don't have to know everything as long as you know someone who has the knowledge that you need. So that's how I move.
Do you, it seems like for you in that situation, it's not something that you mind doing and that you may actually enjoy doing. But do you think that if that is the case, or if it's not, either way, let me know. But do you think that that's I guess what I'm saying is that I guess if it's some sort of, if you enjoy doing it, that's good. And I guess in a sense, that can be a very respectable place to be in. Like to want people always want your knowledge, your information. Oh man, Pop, he can fix anything, man. Uncle Roe, what I mean, Granddaddy Roe, all the different people, in your life that reach out to you and feel like you can fix everything in a sense. Like I said, it seems like that's a good position there to be in. However, sometimes I wonder if the other end of that could be to whereas we as men get taken advantage of because we do want to be able to help and we want to be able to support, especially the loved ones and the people that we kind of drew a circle around and said, this is who and what we're going to protect. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think after a point, I think sometimes we have a fear of letting them down. We got
Yeah.
a fear of saying, "Hey, I don't know how to do that." I think sometimes it's a inadequate feeling within that we don't want. So we try to avoid it and we'll go up there beating on stuff and trying to figure stuff out, messing stuff up instead of saying, I just don't know. And as men, that could be one of those cages that we're talking about, where you put yourself in an emotional cage where you like, hey, I don't want to burden anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, they asked me to do it. I'm gonna try to make it happen. I'm gonna try to fix it. So instead of making things better, we tend to make things worse.
But then I think there's also a group of men, excuse me, who don't get the phone calls from their kids. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what I was talking about too, is like you're in a good situation where you have good relationships with the people in your bloodline to whereas they feel comfortable and that they want or know that they can count on you for X, Y, and Z versus there are some dudes out there who not getting those calls from their kids, saying, hey, dad, you know how to fix this. Hey, dad, you know how to take care of this. You know what I'm saying? So I think at the end of the day, it's a good situation to be in. But not no, but I can also see, I guess, depend on a person's family. I wouldn't want, well, I don't know. I guess you can't really be taken advantage. You think people can be taken advantage of in those spots too? There's
I
probably
think they
some
can.
dad
I think
out
you
there.
can be taken advantage of, but I think
Yeah.
when it comes to I love that my daughters think I'm Superman at times.
Yeah.
Like, man, call me. Hey, what you doing? I got it. But sometimes you can overstep. Like,
Yeah.
because, like my daughter has a husband. So when something goes
Mhm.
on in the house, I had to come to the point and say, hey, hit him up first. Call
Yep.
him. Make him.
Yeah.
Because when you leave him out and it's almost like you're minimizing his manhood per se.
Mhm.
If he can get it happen, or if he calls me and say, I need some help with this, then we can have dialogue. But when you just alleviate him from the equation, it's almost a slap in the face to him. So I think that I'm responsible for mine. When
Mhm.
she got married, he's responsible for you, not me.
Yep.
And I think sometimes women don't understand. I'm gonna call my daddy. Nope, you're gonna call that man you married.
Mm. That part right there, brother. Let me slide over here to chat real quick. I was just going through the chat. Um, I'll answer this one first because I thought about this one a lot. Where do you feel the pressure to perform the most? Home, work, or relationships? So home, work, or relationships. I would say for me, it is the relationship.
Hmm.
And here's why. And I'm talking about the relationship with my wife. Not pressure as in um daily pressure or anything like that. But knowing that as her husband, I took on a role to be the head of the household. So with that being said, there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with that. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that's the one where it's most pressure. It's not pressure to be necessarily be a good husband or anything like that, but it's the pressure to perform um at my highest and at my best at all times because I am an example, I am a leader, and then that same relationship with her, even though we don't have kids together, I have children. I have 3 sons. So at if nothing else, I don't want to be a bad example. So because of all of that, I feel, I don't use the word feel a lot, but since it's in the question, I'm using it. That's where I feel the most pressure to perform the most is in my relationship.
I like the question, but it's like, man, and I want to go with the relationships as well, but I think you tackled that enough. I think sometimes in the home, just how I am, I go with home. You tackle relationships in the home. I got to make sure groceries in the house. I got to make sure a roof over the head. If the fence go down, I got to make sure. If the grass ain't cut, I got to make sure. If like I was in the backyard the other day, I got wasp nests everywhere. Somebody gonna come to me and say, "Hey, hey,
Yeah.
So it's like in the home, it's like my responsibility level is like, man, I know I pay for the thing, but I got to pay for it. I got to furnish it. I got to make sure it's this. I got to make sure it's that. So sometimes that can be taxing, and I think at times people don't look at us as being human. We can be needed, but we ain't human. You supposed to be the man. You supposed to be the husband. You supposed to be the head. Yeah, you want me to be the head when it's something like that. But when I'm
Mhm.
telling you to shut your mouth and let's move this way, you don't want to shut your mouth. You want to keep talking. So at times, being responsible that's to me, that's what manhood is: being responsible for things, whether it's the house, whether it's the relationship, whatever it is, means that you get the short end of the stick. Everybody don't want the short end of the stick. So, you tackled that relationship part. I just want to go with the home, to
Yeah,
see.
I get the home too. And when you are managing a home, there's, the more people you have in it, the more relationships that you have to work on. You know what I mean? Because, the wife, me and the wife, he got this type of relationship. This how we talk to each other. Me and my daughter right here, me and my son, we like this. Me and my granddaughter, the grandson, we like this. So even in managing the home overall, you still have to encompass all of those relationships that fall up underneath that home. And not necessarily just your home, but other people's home as well. Like you mentioned, if your daughter and her husband live somewhere else and she call you up to about some stuff, not saying that he's like this, but there are some men looking over here like like, why you calling this dude? Like, I'm your husband. Why you not asking me how to fix the car? Or why you not asking me this, and this? You know what I'm saying? So how we are as men sometimes, and we talking about that home, sometimes how we are in our home can have an impact on somebody else's home. You mentioned that same that me and my wife now had a similar situation that she had told me about. We've been together for almost 11 years, and in the time that we were dating before we got married, there was a situation I ain't even know anything about it, where she had asked her dad something, and he was like, go ask your man, because we were living together at the time, but we wasn't married yet.
Mhm.
So, in their culture and stuff like that, he same way you were like, look, no, man, like, that's who you need to be talking to. I kind of learned that along the way too, somewhere along the line, I learned that, whoever name that woman has, is their responsibility. So my wife was born, her dad's last name is Lincoln. So before we got married, her last name was Lincoln. So as Lincoln, it's still her dad's responsibility. But now that her last name is Martin, it's my responsibility. So that's just a little something that I picked up along the way. But man, you hit a home run when you was talking about the home stuff there. How do male expectations impact how men ask for help, or why they avoid it altogether?
I can't speak for all men, but I ain't even gonna lie. It's still hard for me to ask for help.
Mm,
It is, because it's been ingrained in me since I was a little kid. You got to make it happen. You got to do it. Now, I think the newer generations, they ask for too much help. It's like, yeah, dog, you can't figure it out. Like, take some context clues and piece this thing together. And instead of trying, it's like they've been coddled so much to where uh mama been giving them the little side dollars every now and again, you know, hey, don't tell your daddy. Okay, I got you. And bailing people out. So now the male expectation is low. Women nowadays say, I got it. I do it myself,
mm-hmm.
because they understand nowadays. Now, our generation got to make it happen. I don't, by hook or by crook, it's gonna happen. And I think the pressures of it sometimes get to us. So the impact on how we ask, it's hard for me to ask for help.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna lie. Like, if I need money, I got too many things where I can say, okay, I'm gonna take this and do this with that. I'm gonna get this money, but I'm not about to go and say, hey, because it feels like a weakness almost. So now mentally, instead of you utilizing my family, utilizing my community, I will suppress that, and I go into a hole, and not thinking that, hey, me digging this hole is putting the family in jeopardy of something down the line. So if I take out a payday loan, if I take out a title loan, now that's going to come back and bite me in the butt later. But at the moment, I'm thinking I'm fixing it. I'm thinking I'm doing what a man should do. And it's one of those things where I'm looking at it like, man, I'm thinking I'm making it happen, but I'm thinking I'm being a man. But in reality, I'm acting childlike.
I get all of that, man. I think that there are still some areas of my life where I'm pretty stubborn at when it comes to asking for help as well. For a lot of different reasons. To name some, if I come to you to borrow $100, you like, darn man, like, bro, this dude retired from the military. Like, some things about my just based off my lifestyle that I shouldn't. I don't necessarily fit the description of somebody who would come to you to ask you for $100. So if I'm asking somebody for $100, I'm like, darn, what is Roland going to be looking at me? What is he going to be thinking about? How is he going to be thinking about me if I ask him for $100? You know what I'm saying? So for me, some of that is them expectations on how I'm going to be looked at by my wolf pack or by my peers, or how I'm going to be looked at once I look myself in the mirror and I'm comparing myself good, bad, or indifferent to other men. If I have to borrow that $100, I'm just like, why am I in a situation to where I need to borrow $100? That's me. That's how I am. But I also know that there are people on the other side of that it's okay for them to do it and they have no qualms about it. But that expectation on men asking for help is hard, because whether I go to one of my homeboys, whether or not I go to my wife, whether or not I go to my wife's parents or whoever it may be, I think that if I'm going to certain people for certain types of help in certain areas, that they're going to look at me in a certain way. Should I, in a sense, have know who I am as a man? Absolutely. However, what if I lost my train of thought?
See, while
Never
you
mind.
thinking about your train of thought, Coach got
Yeah.
a good question right there.
Okay. Let me bring it up there. Wrong screen.
Oh,
I
not,
wonder. Not that one?
not that part. Yeah, that question, but read what's after wrong screen.
I can't.
No, yeah, open it up.
Oh, okay. Do male expectations impact how men ask for help? Or is it more of an upbringing or society expectation that impacts the how?
And that's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because male expectations, where do they come from? It all depends on who's raising you, what you've seen males perform, or how you've seen males perform, and your societal, everything comes into fruition when it's like, if I am like you were just talking, if I'm in that same state and I'm saying, man, I don't want to ask for anything. Now, I always tell people, my money come with my questions. If you accept my money, you get my conversation. Too easy. Now, because if you're mishandling funds, got you. I'm gonna give you the money, but we're gonna have a talk about how to get you out of this situation. That's how we grow. Now, if I just give you the money and say whatever, just leave you to yourself, you're gonna be back asking me for money next month. But if I could grow a relationship and teach you, if I'm equipped with it. See, sometimes we got people that's not equipped trying to tell people, hey, this is how to spend money and save money, and you're not necessarily equipped. But when you have people that are equipped, or people, if I say, man, I don't know, let me grab Coach. Let me grab Coach. He knows about this. And then we all come together. Now, when you come into a bind and we have to bring you out of that bind, we have the expectation that we're giving you not just the substance, but the knowledge so that you won't be in this situation again. Might be in another situation, but you won't be in this one.
I'm thinking about a situation not too long ago where I had someone reach out to me for some financial support. It was a couple of years ago, and the way, and this is where I'm leaning. I'm glad Coach brought it up, so thank you. Um, More of an upbringing or society expectation that impacts the how. The how is like how they come to you for it and ask you. I remember this particular brother was just like kind of just really like beating around the bush about it, and then was really trying to explain why they needed that. And I'm just like, look, bro, where we are, you ain't got to do all of that. All you got to do is just ask. If you just ask, I'm either going to give it to you or either I'm not. But you don't have to paint this big picture for me, because I think what it is society or his upbringing has said, this is how you're supposed to ask people for money. Yes, in general, I think that most people kind of be, because I've heard and I've seen people get asked for money a lot, you know, and heard stories about how people have asked them for money and stuff like this, and it's always kind of similar. Sometimes start with the sob story or them explaining a whole bunch of different reasons why they need it, and I think that because a lot of people, that's what they want. So that's what they try to give people, all of that background information on why they want to borrow or ask for some help, versus just saying, hey, look, brother, man, I'm in a situation. I just need to borrow some money. I need to borrow your truck. I need whatever it may be, without the whole bunch of stuff. And I think that's because some of that societal expectation. But, as I've gotten more mature, I'm at the point where I don't even want to hear it, because if somebody coming to me with it, I'm either going to give it to them or either I'm not. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah,
but
and I'm glad Coach brought that to the table, because sometimes we think everything is just cookie cutter. This
yeah,
is how men should be. This is how women should be. No, I think it's an individual perspective in all of us, because we were all raised in different societies, different communities. So we have a different upbringing in how we see things. Now we should be able to come together and say, okay, in our community, this is how we move. I don't care what you did back in Chitlin Switch, Georgia, or Mudbury, Michigan. This is how we move here. And as men, like, because I know a lot, I've seen it where a lot of men, they're easy to go to women and put their hand out, because they expect that sympathy, they expect that nurturing person, instead of saying, man, let me go to the bros, let me go to us, and so we can figure out some things and make this happen, and get me out of whatever bind that I've put myself in. And that takes first taking responsibility for your actions.
yeah. I want to do this. I'm gonna go back to that question. I want to hit the or avoid it altogether real quick. You can go after me if you want to add something to it. If not, don't worry about it. But I think that's part of a problem too, is they get grown up, saying, just like we said, when little kids, suck it up, drive on, move on with it, blah 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 blah. So sometimes they have that feeling or that thought process that they're supposed to fix everything. So they avoid altogether asking for help. Like you said, like you mentioned as well. People just avoid asking for help. And I think sometimes that's okay to avoid asking for help. I think that there are certain situations that men need to work through. Like you was talking about, with the younger generation. Some of this stuff, y'all need to work through. You know what I mean? You're not going to be where Roland is at necessarily at 22 or 23 years old. There's been a whole bunch of life that has happened in that 30-year gap that you may have with a 20-year-old or so. You know what I'm saying? So I think some of it is it can be a huge issue to avoid asking for help as well.
Hmm.
Let's slide down to a would you rather segment. You okay with that?
Oh, let's go.
All right. Wrong one. All right, there you go. All right, here we go. First one. Would you rather look strong or feel strong?
Look or feel, both
Let's
kind.
let's talk about physically.
Yeah, I think you can look strong, and I don't like either one of these. But if I got to pick one, I'm gonna pick feel.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick feel too. It's like, you may not always necessarily look. There's a whole bunch of people who don't look like a professional bodybuilder or whatever like that, and they still feel strong. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? So I'm going with the feel strong. Would you rather ask for help or struggle quietly?
Now, and where I am in life, I rather ask.
Right
Now,
now, you rather ask?
but I think that took some maturing. I had to get to that point because I was one of the people where I sit up there and have a lighter and a can of pork and beans and eat that before I ask for somebody. I was one of those type of people.
Yep.
But then when you have responsibilities, now, oh, daddy, where you taking the TV? Why the TV leaving? And you got a ticket for the TV now because you had to go pawn the TV. It's like we put ourselves in situations out of pride. And I think that becomes what we think is manhood. And because we've been, we quantify who we are by our income, by our status, by our knowledge base. So we like to talk big about ourselves when we are really minute.
All right. Would you rather redefine masculinity or continue traditional?
Redefine all day. Redefine.
Ugh,
I mean, which one you?
I don't know
I had people
because
mad at me because I wash clothes, because I do laundry, because I like you making the bed, like that's an adult task. That's not a sex task.
mm-hmm,
That's an adult task.
yeah,
So I think that masculinity and femininity, I think when we look at them and we try to base them off of certain roles that we play, we already starting on the wrong foot.
yeah. I definitely think that redefining masculinity is something that needs to be done. So, I don't know. I'm- But I like traditional stuff too.
I like traditional stuff, but would I rather redefine masculinity because I don't like how masculinity is defined right now.
And see, that's why I'm leaning more so towards there. Um, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna roll with you, man. Redefine masculinity. Let me see. Let me see if the chat got anything. Oh my. Oh, somebody said neither. um. Next, would you rather disappoint others or disappoint yourself?
Oh, would I rather disappoint neither? But if I got to choose one myself, well, nah, others bump that. I think at the end of the day, the person in the mirror is who matters.
Mm-hmm.
So if I disappoint me, that's going to like others' expectations of me shouldn't be who I base my value in. I should base my value in how I move, how I see me. And if I see myself doing something that's righteous, that's right, then I'm good. I don't care what you think about it. You ain't got to think anything about it. If I think it's right,
I'd rather disappoint others.
yeah,
That's what you said, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I rather disappoint others. Like I said, I'm not gonna I don't have no control over your disappointment. You know what I mean? I'm gonna disappoint people. I am going to disappoint myself. I don't want to, but it just comes with being a human. Sometimes I'm going to disappoint myself and I'm going to disappoint others. But, sometimes I can be harder on myself. So I think sometimes I'm okay with, yeah, I'm going to disappoint other people. I said neither. Um, would you rather cry openly or hold it in? Cry openly or hold it in?
Are we talking about the ugly cry, like the woman off Murder, whatever it was? Nah.
I know what you mean by the ugly cry, though.
Yeah,
Like the ugly
snotting and
singing.
everything.
Yeah.
I think at like it's a maturing thing. I think at this age, I'd rather hold it in. I ain't even gonna lie. I'd rather suck it up, hold it in. I don't want to be crying over that. What are we talking about? Are we talking about, oh, I got a flat tire? Are we talking about, oh, mama passed or something like that? Now that's okay, you mourning. But you just
Mm-hmm.
crying about things that you're responsible for, hold that in, suck that up.
I'm with you. I'd rather hold it in. Um, with you for all those reasons, man. Like, I'm good now. I'll be 50. I'll be 50 in a couple weeks, man. I'm good with just holding it in. I
Viola
know
Davis, you knew.
huh?
She said it in the chat, Viola Davis.
Viola Davis. Look, hey, I'm cool with sharing, and I'm cool with crying. I'm okay with crying openly about certain things around certain company. This I wouldn't cry in school or at work. I don't know what reason why I could be crying, even if I got some certain news. I'll probably take it to the bathroom or take it to work. I mean, take it to my car or something like that. But crying openly, holding it in, um, I choose B. I think that was it, man. Yeah, that
True.
was the last one.
Even when I
Yeah,
had
I get Lisa Key said situational too.
right. That's why I say if it's like mourning,
Yeah.
but if it's something just that I'm responsible for, something fail,
Yeah. Yeah. Am I hurt? Am I injured?
yeah, that's different.
How does the pressure to always provide shape men's mental health?
How does the pressure to
Always provide shape men's mental health, or does it?
I think it can if you allow it to, because the pressure comes if you allow it to.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when I was retiring, I was like, man, what am I gonna do? I got to make this much money. I got to do this and I got to do that. We think about things that are external that we don't even control, but we're trying to control them. So it kind of builds a lot of pressure inside, and a lot of us have mental breakdowns and heart attacks and anxiety attacks, and it's bad for the mental health. Instead of us saying, man, let me actually tackle this thing bit by bit so that I can look at it in the micro, not the macro. So instead of looking at the big picture, let me take it little picture and then expand. So I think we need to change how we focus on things so that the pressure won't build up, because we understand what pressure can do to us, but we allow it. So when we put ourselves in spaces where we can actually decompress and actually look at a situation instead of just blowing up about it or thinking, I think we handle it better.
First of all, I do think that for a lot of men that have been taught that, well, I ain't gonna say that, but I think that initially, that always provide statement, when you're young and starting off, I don't know if you really understand what that means. Like, always. Like, that means until the day that I'm no longer here. So if some young man at 19 or 20 years old decides to get married, you know what I mean? That responsibility or that pressure to always provide means until you are no longer here. And I think that's a lot of pressure that I didn't necessarily think about when I was 20.
Mhm.
When I was jumping the broom, I didn't, I do always, but how long is always? That's a long time.
See, but
And then that,
I think the pressure is when you're in a relationship, the pressure is on both people. It's not on one
mm-hmm,
person
yeah,
because provide protection. Who protects? Both.
mm-hmm,
It's not a one because uh, your mate, your spouse, your partner, whomever, they see some things that you may not see. So they like, hey, you need to rest right now. You need to go to sleep. They telling you things that, hey, I see you getting tired. I see you ripping and running. I see you doing these things. Whereas I think we've been uh, conditioned to think of the responsibility portion of I got to earn money and I got to be there ready to fight for my family. And that's not the only protection. That's not the only provision that's necessary. That's why it's a combined effort. Is not just a one-off.
yeah. I definitely get that. Um, until the day that I roll up out of here, I gotta make sure that this mortgage is paid.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I gotta make sure that if I roll out of here first, that there's enough for my wife to live the same type of lifestyle that she has right now without having to adjust her lifestyle. She already got to bury me. Last thing I need to do is add extra pressure on her once I roll up out of here. So I definitely understand exactly where you come from because there are things that both people in a relationship have to provide, but just speaking from one side of it, you know what I mean, and that pressure, I think that affects um men's mental health differently. I think when we're young, you just kind of just rolling along and stuff like this, but then as you get older, um knowing that you have a certain responsibility in life, or once you decide what that responsibility is going to be, you know what I mean? I think it's men, I think, start to take a little bit better care of their mental health because they understand how important their mental health may be to the overall being able to provide for the long term. I definitely do more mental health stuff that I do in my 40s than I did in my 20s or in my 30s. I've benefited from just having the awareness of how important my mental health is to making decisions, to being more locked in about things, to being more aware of the time that we all have here and what should be done with that time. Whereas things were different, like again, in my 20s and my 30s. So but I think that as men start to mature and start to age and become more aware of their mortality and stuff like this, I think for a lot of us, we start that pressure of always providing not necessarily turns into profession the pressure, but turns into more into responsibility or something else that we need to make sure that we take care of so we can be able to provide, and that our mental health is stuff like that is in check as well.
See, but I don't think the pressure doesn't go away; it just shifts.
Yeah.
Because even like you said about you're there to provide for the house until I'm
Yeah.
sure because I know you that you have provided where after you're gone, the house is still provided for.
Yeah.
See, because that's what men do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some provisions to where, and that's why it's like, hey, it's imperative for you to get insurance. It's imperative for you to say, hey, I need to stop eating the little ho hos and Twinkies and stuff like that when they come back and tell you your sugar high. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, man, you got to start thinking now. Your responsibility level and your thinking marries, and you say, man, I got to be responsible for me too.
Yep. I get all of that, man. Get it. Um ooh. What expectation do you think hurts men the most in relationship? What expectation do you think hurts men the most in relationships?
I'm the man and I got it.
Mm,
I think when we think I'm the man and I got it, we put more pressure on us than necessary, and we think we can handle it all by ourselves instead of saying, "Man, this is a partnership." And in the partnership, hey, I may have to carry this load, you carry that load. Sometimes I got the heavy weight, sometimes you got the heavy weight. And when you work together, that's when things work. But when you saying, well, I got it, what you're trying to do is be the big I and that person be the little you. Instead of saying, let's work this thing together. It's a we effort, not a me effort.
I like that one. I think one I want to go with is I guess I kind of want to go back to the emotions. Um and I think it's two part. I think one is the expectation that they need to um suck it up, and then the other expectation is that they need to be more emotional. And I think that the reason why I say that is because, kind of back to that other question about society and upbringing, I think this is where that kind of works, kind of with this question, because I think there's two different expectations sometimes when it comes to men, when it comes to relationships. And again, I think that like coach brought up, may have a lot to do with our upbringing and society and what society thinks, because when it comes to emotions, like again, like I mentioned before, there's a certain segment in men's life who want them to be very emotional and share everything and say everything to them, and I'm speaking about maybe the wife or the girlfriend or something like that. But then as men, we're taught to suck that stuff up, brother. Like, don't be telling everybody all your business. I mean, in men and around men circles, one of the things that we talk about is don't share certain things with your lady for whatever reason. Sometimes it's because when you do become very emotional or something like that, sometimes there's an argument that may come up in the future, and then now those things are thrown back in your face. So part of that expectation that hurts men in relationships is the duality of getting growing up with mixed signals about emotions and how they're supposed to respond to emotions as they grow up, and versus when they're in a relationship with their lady. At least that's what I think.
Yeah, I was over here reading the chat, and
Oh,
I
what I
see
miss?
the ninja gang. Uh, what expectation do you think hurts men most in relationships? I think when we have those expectations that I think when we think we got to do it all, man.
Yeah.
I think that's where we are. When we think we got you in a relationship, that means you two are jointly rooted together. So that means we work together. That means we communicate. That means we talk. That means you can't just sit up there and get mad and fly off at the handle and not articulate your issues. You got to be able to articulate your issues, because not being able to do that shows lack of maturity. And when you have a lack of maturity, why are you in a relationship? You need to be in a relationship with yourself first. And when you get in a relationship with yourself first, so that now you won't be like, somebody over here talking about yourself talking about crying and emotions, because crying and emotions are valid
Mm-hmm.
in certain perspectives. Now, if you just crying just because you're crying, now we have a problem. Now you have some learning, some educating, some growing to do. But when you are in a space where it's like, man, how can we grow? I'm always looking to grow.
Yeah.
If I'm ignorant in a certain area, I don't want to be ignorant. So I want to get out of that area.
I'm with you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. You guys been here for the last hour and 10 or 11 minutes or so. So again, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button, share it, save it, all of those different things like that. And again, if you have any questions or comments like that you'd like to add to the chat, feel free to do so. We have been looking over there, so definitely appreciate the engagement that's in the chat right now. Oh, I got it like that. Time for some scenarios. All right. So here's the first scenario. Marcus. Marcus hides stress from his girlfriend of 8 months because he thinks sharing it makes him less of a man. It's now impacting intimacy and communication. What's the issue and or the next move?
Marcus is the issue. Marcus ain't adult enough to have a conversation with his lady.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus needs to he needs to grow up and have a conversation with her, because apparently I don't think the duration of the relationship matters. I think that him hiding the stress of what's going on in the relationship matters. So it's impacting intimacy and communication, but he's the one that knows about it. So it's impacting his communication, his intimacy. So I think Marcus is being selfish and needs to open this conversation up to talk to this young lady.
Let me see. Marcus has stress. So I got to think about what type of stress is Marcus hiding. If I'm stressed out from work, how many of us are told, let work stay at work? Don't bring work home. So if he's hiding his stress, maybe he hasn't learned how to manage it yet. I get talking to the wife. I want to know how it's impacting intimacy and communication, because it seems like if it's impacting communication, they have a communication issue, and you hit on it when you talked about that he need to talk to her about it. I don't know if he need to talk to her or she need to talk to him, but they both need to work on their communication, because if it's impacting communication, I think that's where they need to start it, is with the communication piece. Somebody ain't talking to somebody. I get coming home and not wanting to share what's going on at work. I get, how many times we like I said, how many times have we heard, don't bring that work home. Let work stay at work. Don't bring it here. But sometimes I do believe that that's a lot easier said than done. When you work, I'm good at work, but there are some teachers and there are some people who have some high stressful jobs, and it's hard to leave everything at work. Sometimes it's not as easy for people to transition once they come home, especially if you talking 12, 14-hour days, stuff like that. A lot of your waking moments are spent at work, not at home. So I definitely know there's some communication stuff, but I need to know a little bit more about how it's affecting their intimacy and communication on this one. Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, that situation, I think it's Marcus. Marcus is his stress, his
Mm-hmm.
problem. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's affecting the relationship. So he has to when they say man up, I hate that
Yeah.
phrase. Hate it. But he got to look at it and say, man, how is this holding me back from moving forward in my relationship? Because
Mm-hmm.
whatever this stress is affecting me over here now.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I like that right there too. Let's talk about this. Coach just brought it up. What if she is the source of his stress?
Now, go back to the question.
Mm.
Says Marcus hides stress from his woman. So if she's the source of the stress and he's hiding it, he's still the problem.
Because he need to be
Speak up.
talking
Say
to her
something.
about why she's stressing
Exactly.
him out.
Yes. He's still the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Be a man about it. Ain't that what Tony said?
Yeah. Yeah, then Chardin just made another comment too. I get that too. I get both of them. Marcus has to get to the root of his stress. How is it going to talk to his wife or girlfriend in this case if he doesn't know what it is?
Yeah.
And right here, he need to speak his mind. So everybody with Marcus needing to have a conversation about it. Yep. There you go, Marcus. All right, here we go. Here's another one. We got Derek, Mr. Derek here. So Derek works 65 hours a week because he fears being seen as lazy. That's another one right there. Another expectation right there. If you ain't working, you being lazy, right? So he's exhausted, irritable, and disconnected from his two children, ages 3 and 5, and his wife. What's the issue and or the next move?
Man, why you bashing men today?
Hey, the male expectations, brother.
Nah, he's working and he has in his mind, that's one of those cages where we think if we work more, if we provide more, if we do more, we're more manly, we're better off. Instead of saying, man, let me look at the things that really matter. That job going, you can find another job. And if it's taking you away 65 hours a week, man, because he has an inadequacy issue built inside him. So I would suggest therapy in this session, not talk to me, talk to somebody qualified to help him get out of that rut within his mind.
You need to add another 15 more hours to his work week. No, I'm just playing. Need to be at 80. See, here's where I may differ a little bit on this. His kids are 3 and 5. I understand being there. They're still young. I also understand working. He has the mindset that he's going to work. So he's probably a worker, maybe not an entrepreneur. Let's say for this purpose, he's working a 9 to 5 or whatever, or 9 to 11 or whatever, 9 to 10. Who knows how long he's working long hours. So he may have in his mind that, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to work hard in my 20s and my 30s so I can relax in my 40s and 50s or whatever like that. So in a sense, I'm not necessarily faulting him 100%. I'm not saying that everything is an issue. I am saying that not that they need to go to Disneyland, but I do think that there needs to be a conversation on the why. And being lazy can't be the why. You know, like you mentioned therapy or something like that. I don't know what's in there. Maybe therapy, maybe something else. But working 65 hours for the fear of being lazy, I don't know if that's okay. However, I have seen where fear have put people in situations and worked out for them. You know, I'm a living example. I stayed in the military out of fear. Had a wife at the time, had 3 kids. I'm just like, brother, I ain't got nothing. If I get out, all I got was the flipping. I came from the flipping burgers generation. So would you get out? You're gonna be flipping burgers at McDonald's. So I didn't have the fear of flipping burgers at McDonald's. So I did my 20 years. So at least I'd have a little bit of money coming in.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I ain't have to flip burgers. Or if I was going to flip burgers, it wasn't going to be for 65 hours a week. So I'm not totally against this. I do think that back, just like the last scenario, there needs to be a conversation had in there somewhere about why the fears there about being lazy. You know what I'm saying? But I do think that him and his wife need to have a conversation about, you know, what does getting connected back to the family look like? And even with 65 hours a week, you can still find time in there to do it. But I understand being exhausted, irritable, and disconnected and all of those things too. So we need to know why the 65 hours is there, in my opinion. But just being lazy, I don't get it.
Right. His divine say, what defines lazy? Exactly. So
Yeah,
something in
exactly.
his mental says, if I'm not moving and being quote unquote productive, that I'm being
Mm-hmm.
lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
that's what, yeah.
yeah, productivity doesn't necessarily just happen because you're actually moving. You can be productive while you're sitting still. Make money work for you, not you work for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely get that. Definitely get that. Fact or myth. Then we got a couple more questions. She be flying through. Fact or myth. Here's the did it come out? There we go. I don't need that. Fact or myth. Men should never show weakness. Fact or myth?
Myth.
Myth all day long.
Yeah.
Then we gotta look at what's defined as a weakness. We'll come back to that one maybe. Um, fact or myth? Real men solve problems alone.
Real men solve problems. That's definitely a myth.
Yeah, that's a myth.
Because sometimes I can't brainstorm with myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I gotta call coach. I gotta call Unc. I gotta call Gaddy. I gotta say, hey man, I'm thinking like this. Because if it's all about me and my world and I'm the only one living there, I'm living on the island with a volleyball, I can do that. But since I ain't Tom Hanks, I can't do that. So now, since I have other people, other responsibility, I got to be able to say, hey, what you think about this? What you think? Okay, I was thinking this, and now I got other people's perspectives, hence empowering perspectives. But go ahead. Little
Yeah.
plug.
Yeah, that's a lot. Who gets to determine what a real man is? That part right there. And then yeah, I'm with you, man. I do believe that, men do solve problems alone all the time. I also think that it's not necessarily a fact that makes you a real man if you solve problems alone. I think both, so I'm thinking it's a myth in my book. Um, Coach must be lagging behind a little bit, so let me I'm gonna hit this question up real quick. Um, he said only way he working 65 hours a week. This is back to the other guy, back to the other guy we talked about. If he's only way he working 65 hours if he is on salary or working two jobs. Age matters, stage of life matters, his ability to provide for his family, especially if he's still young, matters. Yeah, and that's kind of some of the stuff that I was talking about too. And that's why I kind of went there was because like, if he young, I get that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you're gonna spend a little bit extra time working a little bit more, maybe for a certain amount of months, maybe for a certain amount of time until you get to a certain level or position in your job to where you may not have to do that as more. Because man, let's be honest. I mean, I'm sure if we looked at the days, we probably did this a lot when we were in the military. Once you think
I do.
about the time from the time your dedicated time to the military every single day. If you thinking about it, you getting up at Fort Hood because you got to be in formation by 6:30, so you got to get up at 4 o'clock in order to leave the house by 4:30, so you can get through one of the gates in time, so you ain't got to be in line for a half an hour. You know what I'm saying? So it's like by the time you start at 4 o'clock, even if you get off at 16:30, you getting home by 1700 at the earliest, because you got traffic. Everybody's leaving the hood gates at the same time too. So now you just gave 13 and a half, 14 hours a day just to the military by the time you get up to the time you get back home, dedicated, at least 5 days a week. So it's easy to rack up 65 hours in the military during a week. And I'm sure it's probably a bunch of other jobs that can probably do the same thing.
Yeah, because when I was young in the military, I was in the military and I took the school option. So I was going to school during the day and I
Mm-hmm.
was working. I'm in the military going to school and I'm working at Blockbuster Video
Dang.
at night. So it's like,
Are you in the military?
yeah, I was
Dang.
working at Blockbuster Video right down Hood Road. It's a pawn shop now. But yeah.
and going to school
Yeah.
and getting up at however early in the morning
Yep.
to go to be at PT by 6:30.
Yep.
Yep. I said all that stuff matter. Yeah, I'm with his define. Thank the Lord for retirement. Um, Fact or myth, a man's worth is based on what he provides.
Myth.
Myth all day long. We ain't gonna spend too much time on that one. Men, fact or myth, men don't feel emotions as deeply as women.
Myth.
Myth.
I think the expectation from other people is that you feel if you don't express it and feel it how I feel it, you aren't feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you minimum if you can control your emotions, if you can manage yourself, then it's like, well, you don't understand. Instead of me actually being able to, mentally put it in there, and I say, okay, let me go ahead and chop this puzzle up so I can put it together and
Mm-hmm.
make sense of it before I react. I think some people are more based on feelings and reactions.
Yeah, I like that. Fact or myth, strong men don't cry.
That's a myth.
That's a myth
If you
all
got to
day.
cry, cry.
Yeah, strong men cry all the time.
I ain't about to sit up there and put myself in a nut house because somebody else see me crying and talk. I'm worried about you talking about me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last one, fact or myth, asking for help makes you less masculine.
Come on, stop. Nope.
Myth all
I
day.
think that I think that's part of masculinity. When you know you need help, ask. Don't wait till it's like, you know. I think ask. I think that's what's wrong with our society now, and that's what like everybody talk about this time of the year, but people are together, and then that whole suicide awareness thing.
Mm.
When you don't ask for help, when you feel all the pressure but you refuse to talk about it, that's where that's not manly. That's
Mhm.
stupidity.
I agree. Man, we're gonna get into this last question. Then we're gonna close out with final thoughts, man. Looking at the time. Um, oh, here we go. What expectation do you think men secretly or openly want freedom from the most? What expectation do you think men secretly want freedom from?
I think we want freedom from the expectation of other people's feelings about us,
Mm,
of how we should move, how we should be, how we should act. I think that men, when you try to put us all into a pot to be one thing, it becomes something crazy because no, I will never be Uncle Junior. I will never be Coach. I will never, live up to that, but I can be the best me. And if I look at manhood and maturity as one and how it is that I am moving, as long as I have the same baseline, then hey, it works. But when I try to put your expectations of me on me and I try to live up to that, I'm gonna fall short every time.
I think I like that one. One I like, and also too, is the expectation that we never need help. You kind of mentioned it earlier. We still in certain areas of our life we still don't want to ask for help. But I think that there are a lot of men who do need help, but there's this expectation that men don't need help, that they got it, that everything is under control. And just because we are in control of our emotions doesn't mean that everything is working out, that we have everything under control, if that makes sense, because there's a lot of stuff that we just don't necessarily express to everybody, including our loved ones, because in certain situations those people may or may not be able to help us out with those things anyway. So why am I going to go and tell my 3-year-old son about me not you know not having enough money this month to cover the rent. So, like he's not going to understand that. So why am I talking to him about it? So, um, that's what I think right there for that one. But I'm gonna keep it cut short because I do want to give us a couple of minutes um, for the final thoughts. You ready? You can go and then I go after you. All
Too
right.
easy. Male expectation, the invisible cage crushing your joy. 3 warning signs. I think one of those cages is having to have constant strength. When you think about being a man, having to be strong for everybody, having to be everybody's leaning post. I think that's one of those things that we need to get out of. Sometimes I need to lean on somebody too. Sometimes you need to lean on someone too. And I don't have all the answers. And when I have to make it up and seem like I have all the answers, then when it doesn't come to pass, I seem like a fraud. So mentally, I'm being drained. Physically, I'm being drained. So what we're looking for is that invisible cage to be something that holds us in. But what it does, it locks me into a position where I'm not equipped to get out of. And then the mental isolation is one of those things where I can put myself in the box, say, yeah, I'm good. How many times have you heard a man say, you say, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good. Because we don't want to talk about it. Because we're looking at it like, if I tell you about it, you ain't gonna do nothing about it. Instead of us talking about it and us coming to a resolve to where we're like, man, just talking about it is therapy. Just having brothers to communicate is therapy. I think that's what we need more of, communication between brothers that let us know that it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay if you are emotional about a situation. What's not okay is for you to bottle it up, hold it in, and then explode on your family, explode on your relationships to where now there's nothing fruitful in it, and you're looking at it like they are the problem when it's you and your insides, and everything about you internally. That's all I got today.
Appreciate that. My final thought, I'm going to stick with the first part, and it talks about male expectations. Mentioned earlier, I'll bring it up. Coach talked about it, and I think it fits right here. A lot of times when we look at male expectations, those male expectations come from society and our upbringing. So my thought process or my final thought is about, you know what I mean, is the information that you've gotten from society and your upbringing applicable to what is expected of you as a male? So, not to challenge anyone, but at the same time, to challenge someone who may be listening to this is, do you does your expectations of who you are as a male line up with society and or your upbringing, good, bad, or indifferent? I think it's important for men and males to understand exactly what is expected out of us, as a man. And I'm not saying that I'm necessarily the person that to determine or to give you these things. I believe that I have some things that I believe quantifies men and what we should be doing as males in our life, but you may have your own, so I would encourage you, if you don't already, to figure out exactly what those male expectations are and kind of sort of moving accordingly or not. Either way, it's up to you. What you got, brother, man, before we close this podcast out this afternoon? You muted.
I thought it was a good conversation. It allowed
Yeah.
us to look internally, and because when we're talking about men, we can talk about men, but every time I say men, I'm thinking about me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about how I move, how to better myself, how to not like respond to people. That's part of the controlling your emotions, part of because I can't tell somebody, hey, you need to have a cooler head when I'm a high head. So it's like sometimes you got to say, okay, let the dumb stuff roll, let stupid people be who they are, because it shows. It's like everybody sees it. So when you speak, if you speak stupidity, it speaks of you and your intellect, not me. So that's one of those things where it's like, man, I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, definitely too, man. Likewise, and appreciate having with you. Appreciate Coach Ben in the chat and stuff like this, adding value, just like everybody else who added value by asking questions and engaging in tonight's conversation. Thought I had one more thing before I rolled out. Back next week, next Friday. I guess that was it. I did like that dehydrated nurse comment. Who wrote these? Like some crazy woman. That was like one of the last ones she wrote. But again, with that being said, we appreciate everybody for being here. Check us out next Friday night for another episode of Hearts of Men podcast. Something may be going on tomorrow and or Sunday. I don't know. You know if anything going on this week?
Nope.
No. All right. Coach's Corner on Tuesday. I think that's it. Got anything?
I ain't got nothing, man. I appreciate you. Hey, Coach, enjoy yourself. Yep. Pray for speedy health of our brother Tawami Gaddy. Health issues, but he's doing fine. But continue to pray for him and lift us all up, the community.
All right. Have a good one. Peace.